Hello, my dear friend. Today I'm sharing my story about my family. Family is an important part of who we are and how we grow up. Everyone's family is different, and the way we interact with our family members shapes our personality, our behavior, and even our goals. In this story, we'll explore the concept of family from a young boy's perspective, Alex, who is talking about his family and how they have influenced his life. The story will be a casual conversation, as if Alex is speaking directly to you, sharing his thoughts, experiences, and moments that made his family unique and special to him. The family dynamic can vary greatly from person to person. For some, family is made up of parents and siblings. For others, it might include extended family like grandparents, aunts, uncles, or even close family friends who feel like relatives. Family isn't always about blood relation, but about the bond that people share through love, care, and support. In Alex's story, we'll hear about the various people in his family, the role they play in his life, and the lessons he has learned from them. Whether it's learning about responsibility, understanding love and conflict, or just the funny little moments that make up everyday life, Alex's story will remind us all of the importance of family. Now, let's get into the story as Alex introduces his family to you. Hi, my name is Alex, and today I want to talk to you about my family. It's kind of a big topic for me because, family is everything. At least that's what my mom always says, and I guess she's right. But family isn't always perfect. It's messy, complicated, fun, and sometimes even frustrating, but in the end, they're the people you know are always going to be there for you. Let me start with my mom. My mom is the heart of our family. She's always there for me, no matter what, and I don't know how she does it. She's got this magical way of keeping everything running smoothly, even when it feels like everything is going wrong. She works hard, but somehow, she always finds time for me, whether it's helping me with my homework or just listening to me talk about my day. One thing I've learned from my mom is the importance of patience. Trust me, I've tested her patience a lot of times, like when I was little and decided to paint the living room wall with my crayons. She wasn't happy about it, but she didn't yell. Instead, she sat me down and explained why it was wrong and how we could fix it together. That's kind of how she deals with everything, with a lot of patience and understanding. Then there's my dad. My dad is kind of the opposite of my mom in a lot of ways. He's more laid back, a little quieter, but he's always there when you need him. He's the one who taught me how to ride a bike, and let me tell you, that was a disaster at first. I fell so many times I lost count. But Dad didn't let me give up. He kept telling me, "You've got this, Alex. Just keep trying." And eventually, I did it. I think that's one of the biggest lessons my dad has taught me, that if you keep trying, you'll get there, no matter how hard it seems at first. My sister, Lily, is another story. She's younger than me by 2 years, but sometimes it feels like she's older because she's always telling me what to do. It's kind of annoying, but I know she means well. We fight a lot, like most siblings do, but at the end of the day, we always have each other's backs. When I got into trouble at school once, she was the first one to comfort me. She didn't say much, just sat with me until I felt better. That's the thing about Lily. She might annoy me, but she's always there when it counts. Now, let's talk about my grandparents. My grandma is this tiny but tough lady who doesn't take nonsense from anyone. She's always telling stories about when she was younger, and honestly, they're pretty cool. She lived through some tough times and still came out stronger. From her, I've learned the importance of being resilient, of standing up for yourself even when things get tough. My grandpa, on the other hand, is the storyteller in the family. Every time we visit, he has a new story to tell about his adventures when he was young. He's kind of a jokester, too, always pulling pranks on me and Lily. But underneath all the jokes, he's taught me the importance of humor and how it can make even the hardest situations a little bit better. And then there's my dog, Max. I know, dogs aren't people. But Max is as much a part of the family as anyone else. He's been with us since I was 5, and he's kind of like my best friend. Whenever I'm feeling down or stressed, Max just knows, and he'll come sit next to me, wagging his tail like he's saying, "It's going to be okay." He's taught me a lot about loyalty and unconditional love, and honestly, I don't know what I'd do without him. So, that's my family. They're not perfect, but they're mine, and I wouldn't trade them for anything. We've been through a lot together, good times, bad times, and everything in between. But at the end of the day, I know they've got my back, just like I've got theirs. Growing up with my family has taught me so many things, and I know that even though we'll all grow and change, those lessons will stick with me. Whether it's my mom's patience, my dad's determination, Lily's loyalty, my grandma's resilience, or my grandpa's sense of humor, I carry a little bit of each of them with me wherever I go. Family isn't just about the people you're related to. It's about the love, the support, and the lessons that shape who you are. And I'm really lucky to have a family that has done that for me. As I was saying, my family means everything to me. It's not like we don't have our share of problems, though. Sometimes it feels like we argue more than we talk, especially when things get stressful. But that's part of being in a family, I guess. You fight, you make up, and you move on. One of the biggest fights we ever had was about my grades. Yeah, that was not fun. See, school doesn't come naturally to me. I try, but sometimes it feels like no matter how much I study, I can't seem to get the results I want. My parents, especially my mom, always push me to do my best, but last year I kind of gave up for a while. I was frustrated, tired of feeling like I wasn't good enough. So I stopped trying as hard and, well, my grades slipped. Big time. When my report card came home, you can imagine how that went. My dad was quiet. He usually is when he's disappointed. But my mom, she was upset, really upset. I remember her asking, "Why didn't you tell us you were struggling? We could have helped you." I didn't know how to answer that because honestly, I didn't even know why I hadn't said anything. I guess I just didn't want them to see me failing. I didn't want to disappoint them. Lily overheard the whole thing and tried to step in to defend me, which I appreciated, but it only made things more tense. My mom was trying to help, I knew that. But at the time, all I could think about was how I had let everyone down. So, I kind of exploded. I yelled at them, said things I didn't mean, and stormed out of the house. It was one of those moments where everything feels overwhelming and you just need to escape. I ended up going to the park near our house. It's my go-to spot when I need to clear my head. Max came with me, of course, like he always does. He sat next to me on the bench, wagging his tail like everything was fine, even though I felt like the world was falling apart. That's the thing about Max. He doesn't care about my grades or whether I'm succeeding or failing. He's just there, being Max, and somehow that makes everything a little better. After a while, my dad showed up. He didn't say anything at first, just sat down next to me and looked out at the park. We stayed like that for what felt like forever, neither of us talking. And then, finally, he spoke. "You know, Alex, your mom and I aren't upset because of your grades. We're upset because we didn't know you were struggling. You don't have to go through things alone." That hit me hard. I'd been so caught up in my own frustration that I hadn't realized how much my family cared. They weren't mad at me for failing. They were worried about me. We talked for a while after that. Well, my dad did most of the talking, but I listened. He told me about how he'd struggled in school too, how he didn't always get things right the first time either. It surprised me because, in my eyes, my dad always seems to have everything together. Hearing that he had been where I was made me feel a little less alone. Eventually, we went home. My mom was still a bit upset, but after we talked, things got better. We came up with a plan to help me with my studies, and they even got me a tutor for the subjects I was struggling with the most. It wasn't an easy fix. I had to work hard to catch up, but I did it, and my family was with me every step of the way. That's the thing about family. Even when you mess up, even when you feel like you've let them down, they're still there. They don't give up on you, even when you're ready to give up on yourself. It wasn't just about school, though. I realized then that I needed to communicate more, to let my family know when I was struggling instead of trying to handle everything on my own. I've always been pretty independent, but I've learned that it's okay to lean on the people who care about you. That's what they're there for. After that, things started to change. I stopped feeling like I had to prove myself all the time. My family didn't care about me being perfect. They just wanted me to try my best, and that was enough. I started doing better in school, not because I was afraid of disappointing them, but because I knew I had their support no matter what. Looking back, that fight about my grades was actually a turning point for me. It taught me a lot about myself and about my family. I realized that we're not just individuals living under the same roof. We're a team. And like any team, we have our ups and downs, but in the end, we're always there for each other. I think about that day a lot now, especially when I'm feeling overwhelmed. Whenever I'm struggling with something, whether it's school or friends or just life in general, I remind myself that I don't have to face it alone. My family is there, and they've always got my back. It's funny how one argument can change so much, but it did. I'm closer to my family now than I've ever been, and I know that no matter what happens, we'll get through it together. Life in my family wasn't always about arguments and serious moments, though. There were plenty of times where we just had fun, and those are some of my favorite memories. One thing that we did almost every weekend was a family movie night. It might sound simple, but it was a big deal for us. Every Saturday, we'd all pile into the living room with snacks, usually way too much popcorn and candy, and take turns picking a movie to watch. Of course, this always led to arguments because Lily and I rarely agreed on anything when it came to movies. She liked animated movies and musicals, and I preferred action or adventure films. My parents? They didn't seem to care as long as we were all together. One of the best movie nights we ever had was the time I convinced everyone to watch a superhero movie I'd been dying to see. I was sure Lily would hate it, and I could tell she wasn't too excited about it at first. But halfway through the movie, I glanced over at her, and she was completely into it, eyes wide, clutching her pillow like she was on the edge of her seat. I don't know why, but that moment stuck with me. It was one of those rare times when we actually liked the same thing, and it felt like we weren't just siblings who fought over silly things. We were friends too. After the movie ended, we spent the rest of the night talking about our favorite scenes and which superhero powers we'd want if we could have any. Lily surprised me by saying she'd want the power of invisibility, and I teased her that she probably wanted it so she could sneak into my room and steal my stuff without getting caught. She just laughed and said, "Maybe." Those kinds of nights remind me that Even though we fight, we still have so much fun together. Family isn't just about the serious moments. It's about the little things like movie nights and inside jokes that make life special. Speaking of fun, my dad is also really into games, but not the video games I like. He's all about board games, especially the strategy kind. At first, I wasn't into them, but then one night he taught me how to play chess. I thought it was going to be boring, but it turned out to be kind of cool. The first few times we played, he beat me easily, but over time, I got better. One night, after months of practice, I finally won. I was so proud of myself, and my dad just smiled and said, "See, you stick with something long enough and you get better." That's kind of a theme with my dad. He's always encouraging me to keep going, to not give up, whether it's with games, school, or anything else. It's like his quiet way of teaching me that perseverance matters. My mom, on the other hand, is more about creativity. She loves painting, and sometimes she'll spend hours in her little art room working on her projects. I used to think painting was something only grown-ups liked, but one day she asked me to help her with a painting she was working on. At first, I was reluctant. I didn't think I'd be any good at it. But she told me it didn't matter if I was good. It just mattered that I tried and had fun. So I picked up a brush and started painting. That afternoon turned out to be one of the best times I've had with my mom. We didn't talk much while we painted, but we didn't need to. It was just nice being there together, working on something creative. When we finished, my part of the painting didn't look great, but my mom smiled and said it was perfect. I knew she was just being nice, but I appreciated it. She framed that painting and hung it in the living room, and every time I look at it, I remember that day. It's funny. Those quiet, simple moments with my family mean just as much to me as the big, important ones. Sometimes I think we get so caught up in life, school, work, whatever, that we forget to appreciate the small things. But those little moments, like painting with my mom or playing chess with my dad, are what really make families special. Lily, of course, has her own way of making family time interesting. She's always coming up with new games or ideas for us to try. Last year, she decided we should have a family talent show. At first, I thought it was a terrible idea because I didn't really have a talent that I wanted to show off. But Lily was determined, and she even made a whole schedule for the evening, complete with snack breaks and a trophy for the winner, which, by the way, was just a shiny rock she found in the backyard. We each had to perform something. My mom played the piano, my dad told some jokes, which honestly were pretty bad, but we laughed anyway. And Lily performed a dance routine she'd been working on. When it was my turn, I had no idea what to do. So I ended up just doing some silly impressions of my favorite cartoon characters, and somehow it ended up being a hit. Lily laughed so hard she had tears in her eyes. In the end, we all agreed that Lily's dance was the best, so she got to keep the trophy. But the real prize was just how much fun we had together. It was one of those nights that we still talk about, even though it wasn't a big planned event. It was just something silly we did for fun, but it brought us closer together. I guess that's what family's all about, sharing those moments, both big and small, and creating memories that stick with you. Whether it's through laughter, learning, or just spending time together, these are the things that make a family strong. Another thing I've realized about my family is how much we've all grown together. It's not just me who's changing. Everyone in my family is evolving in their own way. And when you're close to people, you get to witness that growth firsthand. Take my mom, for example. She's always been the one who keeps us organized and on track, but Over the past year, I've noticed she's been trying new things. She started taking a yoga class, which is something she never would have done before. I think she's finally doing something for herself after spending so many years focusing on me and Lily. One day I asked her about it. We were sitting at the kitchen table, and she had just come back from her class looking more relaxed than I'd seen her in a long time. "Mom, how come you started doing yoga?" I asked. She smiled and said, "Well, I guess I just needed something that was mine, you know? Something that helps me unwind and feel like myself again." That answer stuck with me. It made me realize that parents aren't just parents. They're people too, with their own dreams, stresses, and goals. It's easy to forget that when you're a kid because they're always focused on you, making sure you have everything you need. But my mom was teaching me that it's okay, important even, to take care of yourself too. It made me appreciate everything she does for us even more. Then there's my dad. He's always been this steady, reliable presence in my life, but I've noticed he's been more adventurous lately. He's taken up gardening, which surprised me because I never thought of him as the green thumb type. But now our backyard is full of plants and flowers, and every weekend, he's out there working in the dirt, experimenting with new seeds and tools. Sometimes I join him, even though I'm not that into gardening, just to spend time with him. One afternoon while we were out in the garden, I asked him why he'd suddenly gotten so interested in plants. He thought about it for a moment and said, "I guess I like seeing things grow. It's satisfying, watching something you've cared for slowly turn into something beautiful." His words hit me in a way I didn't expect. It made me think about how we're all like those plants in a way, growing little by little, shaped by the care and attention we get from the people around us. My dad's new hobby wasn't just about plants, it was about patience, nurturing, and appreciating the process of growth, whether it's with flowers or with family. Even Lily has changed a lot. She's growing up so fast, and sometimes I don't even recognize the confident girl she's becoming. She used to follow me around everywhere, looking up to me like I was the coolest person in the world. Now, she's got her own group of friends, her own interests, and I can see that she's becoming her own person. It's weird, because I always saw her as my little sister who needed me, but now I realize she's becoming more independent. There was this one time when Lily and I were walking home from school and she told me about something that had happened with her friends. Apparently, one of her classmates had said something mean to her, and she stood up for herself. She didn't need me to step in and protect her. She handled it all on her own. "I told her that just because she didn't like my shoes didn't mean she had to be rude," Lily said, shrugging like it was no big deal. I was impressed. She didn't need me to stick up for her anymore. She could do it herself. And while a part of me missed being her big protector, another part of me was proud. She was becoming strong and confident, and I knew that was something she'd learned from being in our family. Watching everyone change has made me think about how I've grown too. I'm not the same kid I was a few years ago. I've become more responsible, more aware of what's going on around me. I used to rely on my parents for everything, but now I'm starting to figure things out on my own. Whether it's managing my schoolwork, helping out around the house, or just thinking more about the future, I feel like I'm taking on more responsibility. I remember one evening when my mom asked me to watch Lily for the night because she and Dad were going out for dinner. It was the first time they'd really left us alone like that, and at first, I was a little nervous. What if something went wrong? What if Lily got hurt or there was an emergency? But everything went fine. We ordered pizza, watched a movie, and played some games. I made sure Lily brushed her teeth and went to bed on time, just like my mom had asked. When my parents came home, they seemed happy and relaxed, and I realized that they trusted me. They trusted me to take care of things, to be responsible. That was a pretty big moment for me because it made me see that I wasn't just a kid anymore. I was growing up, and my family saw that too. Of course, growing up doesn't mean everything is perfect. I still have my moments when I mess up or get frustrated. There are times when I argue with Lily or don't do as well as I'd hoped in school. But the difference now is that I don't feel like I have to face those moments alone. My family is always there to help me get back on track, to remind me that it's okay to make mistakes as long as I keep trying. One of the biggest lessons I've learned from my family is that no one's perfect, but that's okay. We're all just doing our best, learning as we go. And the great thing about family is that no matter how much you mess up, they're always there to help you pick up the pieces. Whether it's through love, advice, or just being there to listen, family is what keeps you grounded. As I look around at my family now, I see that we're all on this journey together. We're growing, learning, and becoming better people because of each other. My mom with her yoga, my dad with his gardening, Lily with her newfound independence, and me figuring out who I am and who I want to be. Family isn't just about the people you're related to, it's about the people who help you become the best version of yourself. And I'm really lucky to have a family that does that for me. Hey, so this time, let me tell you about my friend, Ryan. His family is kind of different from mine, but in a way, I think that's what makes them so interesting. Ryan and I have been friends since we were little, and I've spent enough time at his house to know how his family works. They're not like one of those typical families you see on TV. They're loud, chaotic, and always seem to be running in 10 different directions at once. But somehow, it all works for them. Ryan's got 3 brothers. Yeah, 3. Can you imagine? His house is always full of noise, shouting, laughing, doors slamming. It's like they're constantly in the middle of some kind of wrestling match or argument. But the crazy thing is they all seem to enjoy it. Ryan once told me that if it's too quiet in the house, it feels weird. He's so used to the chaos that he doesn't know how to handle silence. His older brother, Jake, is kind of like the leader of the pack. He's a couple of years older than us and has this way of getting everyone to listen to him, even though he's usually the one causing trouble. I remember this one time when we were all hanging out in Ryan's backyard, and Jake came up with the bright idea to build a ramp for their bikes. It sounded cool at first, but then I realized he wanted to use the picnic table as the base for the ramp. I mean, who does that? Of course, Ryan and his younger brothers, Max and Ethan, were all in on the plan, hyping it up like it was going to be the greatest ramp in history. I wasn't so sure, but they convinced me to help anyway. We spent the whole afternoon dragging planks of wood and stacking them on the table. By the time we were done, the ramp looked like it could collapse at any second. Jake, being the fearless or reckless older brother, decided to test it out first. He got on his bike, backed up as far as he could, and then pedaled full speed toward the ramp. We all held our breath, half excited, half scared for what was about to happen. He hit the ramp, and for a second, it looked like he might actually pull it off. But then the whole thing gave way. The table legs buckled, the planks slid apart, and Jake went flying, right into the bushes. We all burst out laughing, even Jake, who came out of the bushes with leaves in his hair and dirt on his face. It was one of those ridiculous moments that could have gone so wrong, but ended up being a funny memory instead. That's kind of how Ryan's family works. They're always doing something wild, always on the edge of turning disaster into fun. It's like they live for those moments when things could go either way. But no matter how crazy things get, you can tell they've got each other's backs. Ryan's mom is another story. She's the one holding everything together, and honestly, I don't know how she does it. I've seen her manage 5 different things at once without even breaking a sweat. Cooking dinner, helping Ethan with his homework, telling Jake to clean his room, all while keeping an eye on Max so he doesn't break something. She's like a superhero, but she doesn't make a big deal out of it. She just gets things done. I remember once when Ryan and I were working on a school project at his house and his brothers were being extra annoying. Max kept trying to steal our supplies, Ethan was asking a million questions, and Jake was blasting music in his room. I was getting frustrated, but Ryan's mom just walked in, smiled, and calmly told them all to leave us alone. Within minutes, the house was quiet. Well, quieter than usual, and we were able to finish our project. It was like magic. Ryan laughed and said, "Yeah, my mom's got that mom power or something." Even though they're always busy, Ryan's family makes time for each other in ways that you wouldn't expect. Like, every Sunday, no matter what, they have a family dinner. And I don't mean just a quick meal where everyone grabs a plate and eats in front of the TV. No, they sit down together at the table, all of them, and talk. I've been invited a couple of times, and let me tell you, those dinners are anything but boring. One Sunday, I was over, and Ryan's dad asked everyone to go around the table and say one good thing that happened to them that week. Simple enough, right? But when you're in a house with 3 brothers, it turns into a competition. Max started exaggerating his story about scoring a goal in soccer, making it sound like he single-handedly won the championship. Ethan chimed in with some wild story about how he totally beat up a kid who was bothering him at recess, which, according to Ryan, didn't actually happen. And then Jake, being Jake, made up some ridiculous story about how he rescued a cat from a tree, even though everyone knew he was lying. But the thing is, no one got mad. His parents didn't shut him down or tell him to stop making stuff up. They just laughed and played along. That's what I noticed about Ryan's family. They don't take things too seriously. They give each other space to be silly, to mess up, to just be themselves, and that's something I really admire. Ryan being in the middle of all this is kind of the laid-back one. He's not as wild as Jake or as goofy as Max and Ethan, but he's definitely got that same sense of adventure. He just goes with the flow, rolling his eyes at his brother's antics, but joining in when it counts. I think being in a family like his has made him adaptable. He knows how to handle chaos and keep things in perspective, which is probably why he's such a good friend. Sometimes, Ryan and I talk about how different our families are. My house is quieter, more organized. We have routines, and things don't get as crazy as they do at Ryan's place. But he told me once that he likes coming over to my house because it's a break from the noise. He said it's nice to have some calm for a change. And honestly, I kind of feel the same way about his house. It's fun to be around the chaos, to be part of the action, even if it's just for a little while. I guess that's what makes Ryan's family special. They're loud and messy, but they love each other fiercely. They don't let the little things get in the way of having fun and supporting each other. Even when they're arguing or making a mess, you can tell there's this deep connection between them. It's like they understand that family isn't about being perfect. It's about sticking together no matter what. So yeah, Ryan's family might be different from mine, but in the end, I think we both have something special. Whether it's through quiet moments or loud ones, family is what keeps us grounded. And as different as our families are, they've both taught us what really matters, being there for each other, no matter how crazy life gets. Ryan and I have talked a lot about how our families are so different. But the more I think about it, the more I realize that every family has its own way of working things out. His house might be full of chaos and noise, while mine is a little quieter and more organized, but at the end of the day, we both feel the same thing. Our families are there for us, and I think that's the most important part. One thing that really stuck with me about Ryan's family was something his dad said during one of those Sunday dinners. It was one of the rare moments when everyone was actually listening to each other. We were talking about the craziest thing we'd ever done, and naturally, Jake started telling a story about the time he and his friends snuck into an abandoned building near their neighborhood. It was a typical Jake story, full of exaggeration and suspense, and we were all hooked, even though we knew half of it probably wasn't true. After Jake finished, Ryan's dad leaned back in his chair and said, "You know, boys, the wildest things you'll ever do might not seem so crazy in the moment. But looking back, you'll see that it's the small, everyday stuff that sticks with you. The times when you mess up and your family's still there to help you get through it. That's what matters." Ryan rolled his eyes a little, but I could tell that his dad's words hit home. It's easy to get caught up in the big moments like the wild adventures or the arguments, but it's the everyday things, like those family dinners or helping each other with school projects, or even just hanging out in the backyard, that really shape who we are. It made me think about my own family and how, even though we're not as loud or chaotic as Ryan's, we still have those small moments that mean the world. There was this one time, not too long ago, when Ryan came over to my house after having a rough day. He didn't say much at first, just kind of mumbled something about how his brothers were driving him crazy and how nothing was going right. I could tell he was frustrated, but instead of talking about it, he just wanted to escape for a bit. So we played video games and had some snacks, and after a while, he started to relax. Later that night, as we were sitting in my room, he finally opened up. "You know, sometimes I wish my family was more like yours. Quieter, calmer. It's like there's always something happening at my house, and it drives me nuts." I didn't really know what to say at first. I mean, I understood where he was coming from, but at the same time, I knew how much he loved his family, even when they were being loud or annoying. "Yeah, but you'd miss it if it wasn't like that," I finally said. "I mean, your house might be crazy, but it's also kind of fun. You guys are always doing stuff together." Ryan shrugged. "I guess. But sometimes I just wish I could have some peace and quiet, you know?" I nodded. "Yeah, I get that. But hey, if it wasn't for your family, we wouldn't have had that awesome bike ramp, right?" He laughed, remembering the time Jake crashed into the bushes. "True. That was pretty epic." It was in that moment that I realized how much our families balance us out. Ryan comes to my house when he needs a break from the noise, and I go to his when I want to be part of the action. We both get the best of both worlds because we have each other, and that's something I'm really grateful for. As we've gotten older, I've noticed that Ryan's brothers are growing up too. Jake's still wild, but he's starting to take on more responsibility. Max is getting more focused on his soccer games, and Ethan, well, he's still Ethan, but he's learning to stand up for himself more. Ryan, though, he's still the calm one in the middle of it all, keeping things steady. One day, after school, Ryan and I were hanging out in his room, and he told me something that surprised me. "You know, I used to think my family was too much, like, why couldn't we just be normal like other families?" But now I'm starting to see that maybe being normal isn't all it's cracked up to be. I raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? He leaned back on his bed and stared at the ceiling for a minute. I mean, yeah, my family's loud and we argue a lot and things get crazy sometimes. But when it comes down to it, we're always there for each other. Like, Jake can be a pain, but he's the first one to stand up for me if I'm in trouble. And my mom, man, she does everything for us, even when we don't make it easy for her. I guess what I'm saying is, maybe the craziness is just part of what makes us work. I thought about that for a second. Yeah, I think you're right. Every family's got their own kind of crazy, I guess. But it's that stuff that makes them special. Ryan smiled. Yeah, I wouldn't trade them for anything. Some tips related to the story of family dynamics, with explanations to help you apply them in real life. 1. Embrace differences in family dynamics. Tip: every family operates differently, whether it's loud and chaotic like Ryan's or quieter and more structured like Alex's. Instead of comparing families or wishing things were different, embrace and appreciate the uniqueness of your own family dynamic. Explanation: no two families are the same, and that's what makes each one special. It's easy to think another family has it better when they handle things differently, but every family has its own strengths. Recognizing and accepting how your family works will help you build stronger, more authentic relationships with them. 2. Support each other, even in chaos. Tip: in moments of stress or chaos, focus on supporting your family members instead of getting caught up in the tension or disagreements. Explanation: family life can get messy, whether it's arguments, misunderstandings, or just the daily grind. But even in the middle of all that, being supportive is what matters most. Like how Ryan's family sticks together, even when things get wild. Offering help or a listening ear during tough times strengthens family bonds. 3. Make time for connection. Tip: no matter how busy or chaotic life gets, carve out intentional time to connect with your family, whether it's through meals, conversations, or shared activities. Explanation: Ryan's family has their Sunday dinners, and even though they might be loud and a little crazy, they make time for each other. These moments of connection, whether they involve talking, playing games, or just being together, create lasting memories and deepen relationships. 4. Recognize the value of everyday moments. Tip: don't overlook the small daily interactions you have with your family. These seemingly minor moments often carry more meaning and impact than the big events. Explanation: Ryan's dad mentions that the everyday moments are what really stick with you. These small, consistent experiences, helping with homework, sharing a meal, or having a quick chat, can create strong family bonds. Even if life seems routine, those regular interactions are what keep a family close. 5. Communicate openly and honestly. Tip: be open and honest with your family about how you feel, especially during stressful times. Communication helps resolve conflicts and strengthens trust. Explanation: Ryan and Alex both deal with stress in their families in different ways, but talking about their experiences and frustrations allows them to reflect and gain perspective. Whether it's sharing frustrations, joys, or even silly stories, communication helps everyone understand each other better and resolve conflicts more smoothly. 6. Learn to adapt. Tip: Be flexible and adaptable in how you deal with family challenges. Sometimes things don't go as planned, and adapting with patience is key to maintaining harmony. Explanation. Families go through different phases and changes. Siblings grow up, parents' responsibilities shift, and life can throw unexpected challenges your way. Like Ryan's ability to go with the flow, adapting to changing situations can help you handle family dynamics without getting overwhelmed or stressed. 7. Appreciate the strengths of your family members. Tip: focus on the strengths each family member brings to the table, even if they're different from yours. Everyone contributes to the family in their own way. Explanation. In the story, Ryan acknowledges that his mom is the glue holding their chaotic household together, and Jake is the protective older brother. Recognizing and appreciating each person's unique role in the family helps you value them more deeply, leading to greater harmony and respect. 8. Create traditions that work for your family. Tip: establish traditions, no matter how small, that bring your family together and create a sense of belonging. Explanation. Ryan's family makes time for Sunday dinners, and that tradition becomes a regular way for them to connect and share stories. Family traditions, whether it's a weekly meal or a yearly vacation, give everyone something to look forward to and foster a sense of togetherness and continuity. 9. Find balance between independence and togetherness. Tip: while spending time together as a family is important, it's also essential to respect each family member's need for space and independence. Explanation. Ryan enjoys the chaos of his family, but he also appreciates the quiet when he's at Alex's house. Striking a balance between family time and personal space helps prevent burnout or frustration, making family life more enjoyable for everyone.